This message is brought to you by donotage.org, the longevity research organisation that's on a mission to extend health span for as many people as possible via products that actually work. Start your journey today at donotage.org and use code LLAMA for a 10% discount. That's LLAMA.
I wish more people would wake up in the morning being excited about what they're going to be doing the rest of the day. There was a baseball player by the name of Satchel Paige that years and years ago said, how old would you be if you didn't know how old you was? I mean, that's about
exactly.
It. I don't feel 82. I mean, in my head, if someone, I've thought about this a lot. I feel about 53.
Hello and welcome to the Live Long and Master Aging podcast. I'm Peter Bowes, and this is where we explore the science and stories behind human longevity. Well, I'm delighted to be with Herb Alpert for this episode. I've come to Herb's studio here in Malibu in California. Herb Alpert, of course, one of the legends of the music business, from the Tijuana Brass to running his own record label, discovering the Carpenters, to forming his own music foundation, nurturing the talent of young artists today. Herb, it's great to see you.
And good morning.
And good morning. It's great to see you. That was a bit of Spanish Flea, wasn't it?
That was a little Spanish Flea, yeah. That was written by Julius Wechter, and it's one of the staple dishes.
What an unmistakable bit of music as well.
Well, this is how I got started, because when I was 8 years old, I had this incredible experience in my grammar school here in Los Angeles. And there was a music appreciation class. And when I picked up the trumpet and the trumpet started talking, for me, I was very shy. I was an introvert. I still am an introvert, but that trumpet was making the noise that I couldn't make out of my mouth. So it's been a great friend for me. I stay with it and practice it just about every day of my life, because it's a fun pursuit. You never really get to where you want to get to as a musician. My friend Dizzy Gillespie used to say, the closer I get, the farther it looks. So I'm continually practicing and having a great time doing it.
And you say you were an introverted child, that you played the instrument and music kind of brought you out of yourself a little bit?
I don't know, but at that particular time in my life, when 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, it was communicating for me. I didn't have a lot to say. I wasn't really very verbal. So the trumpet was doing what I couldn't do, and it all seemed to work out.
When did you realize that you had a real talent for playing an instrument? When did you realize that you had a special ability?
Well, it took a while. I studied with some great musicians, and this one Russian teacher that I had, I was playing this etude, and after I finished it, I looked at him, and there was tears rolling down his face, and he said, that was just beautiful. That was beautiful, so beautiful, And from that point on, I felt like, maybe I do have something. But I was in the classical world at that time, and then I got corrupted with, Louis Armstrong and Miles Davis and jazz, and I decided, I just wanted to close my eyes and play. I just wanted to make the music that was coming naturally out of me. And jazz, I gravitated towards jazz, and then with the Tijuana Brass, that kind of crossed. It was a hybrid to me. It was like a cross between jazz and pop. So I felt like I was on my own trail there.
Now, this is a podcast about human longevity. So we talk about longevity in all of its forms, from health and wellness to career longevity, relationship longevity. You are now 82 years old. Do you think about your own lifespan, your own health span in terms of longevity? Is it something that you ponder on?
Only when my back goes out. No, I really don't think about it. I'm really blessed. I get to do what I love to do. I love to paint. I love to sculpt. I love to make music. And I'm 85% in the right side of my brain. And I'm one of the lucky ones. I wake up in the morning thinking about things I'd like to do that day, and it usually has to do with something creative. That's why, I started the Herb Alpert Foundation to see if I can bring that same type of energy into the public school system and private school system. We've cut a lot of these programs out, and I think it's crucially important for kids to have that experience at an early age.
Do you get a lot out of just simply being with young people, young, enthusiastic people who want to make something of their lives?
Well, it takes a while for a kid to really get started. You know, you got to start the engine, and then they find their passion. That you can't really talk anyone into their passion, but you know, when you start learning to play an instrument, or you're an actor or a dancer or you're a poet, you have to kind of find your own, flag yourself down to the runway, and then you get your passion going. I think teaching is all about inspiration. If you can inspire somebody to do something, and then it's up to them, you know. But the inspiration is that first thing that ignites passion.
Where did your initial passion and inspiration come from? You talked about, I suppose, picking up an instrument for the first time and realizing that you had something. But was there someone or something that fired that enthusiasm in you?
Well, I think, you know, I spent a lot of time learning how to play the trumpet, and there was a moment when I was playing with a little group, and somebody came up to me and says, "Man, I really like the way you play. It touches me." You know, I think it started there, and of course, I've had some wonderful experiences of working with the great Sam Cooke years back, and Sam was a mentor to me. He didn't know it, but he taught me a lot about it's all about feeling. It's not about the intellect. It's not about technical ability. It's all about how does it feel, you know? And I've always pursued that aspect of it. When I think about the musicians that I like and the records that I like, I think it breaks down to does it touch you or it doesn't touch you? And you can't talk anyone into a record. You know, when I was at A&M Records, the A of A&M Records, and I remember listening to a song that an artist, I was actually a master that the artist came into my office with, and I was so excited about it, and I thought, man, well, this could be a big hit record, you know. So I remember going into the promotion department and playing it for them, and the three people that were in that department, they were kind of like staring out the window as I was playing this thing. I mean, they didn't get it, you know, or they didn't get Rise. As a matter of fact, when I recorded that in 1979, they didn't. It didn't connect for some reason until, you know, radio started responding, and some disc jockeys really loved it, and so it started climbing up the charts, and all of a sudden, you know, it became a big hit, and everyone, you know, obviously turned around. And the same thing happened with the Carpenters. You know, I signed the Carpenters in 1970. First couple of records were like, not so-so, and a lot of the people in my own company were saying, I was hearing the rumble of these kids are a little too cute, a little too sweet, that doesn't really fit into radio. And then I gave them Close to You. And, you know, the tide turned. So nobody really knows. The public knows what they like. And for me, asking me personally, I mean, it's a real personal decision on the likes and dislikes of art. To me, art is such a mystery. You know, what is that thing that makes you really buzz to when you hear something or when you see a sculpture? I remember seeing the sculpture of David in Florence several years ago, and I was tearing up. You know, I was just, wow, there it is, that sculpture is fantastic. And then as I reflected on it, I was thinking, what if I was there when Michelangelo was creating this thing, and he said, "Herb, give me the truth. What do you think? How am I doing? Do you love this or like it?" And I wanted to be really honest with him, and I would have said, "I think the hands are too big, and the feet are too big." You know, so I would have ruined it if he took my advice. Yeah. So it's all individual.
It's interesting. You, as a young man, when you were learning the instrument, that you had someone to nurture your talent, to tell you in effect that you were good at what you were doing, and presumably enthuse you and encourage you to keep on going. I suppose that's what you did as a music manager, as a record label impresario. You know, you met Karen Carpenter and you heard her music for the first time on tape, and you realized that she had something special.
Well, I realized that they had something special. It wasn't just Karen. Karen was
Right.
beautiful. She had a wonderful God-given talent, but it was the two of them. It was Richard and Karen, because when I met them, Karen was playing drums, and she was singing. She didn't like to get out behind that drum set until, after they had several hit records.
That's what she thought she did best, I think, isn't it, at one stage?
Well, yeah. If you would ask her, what's your strength? She says, well, I'm a really good drummer. She didn't know how great she was. I mean, she didn't know that she touched so many people in so many profound ways.
And of course, very sadly, she is one of those people who is kind of frozen in time, isn't she? From that great voice that she had at a young age, and then no more. And I suppose we can only be left to wonder what might have been, what greatness she might have gone on to, how she could have sounded today.
Well, that's true, but that's not the sad part. The sad part for me is that she never really realized how great she was,
Right.
and how many people she touched in a positive way. She was a kid that was not quite mature yet. She was very innocent. She was a lovely girl, and it's just the saddest thing to think that, she bounced into my office 2 weeks before she passed away. And she was all excited. She wanted to do concerts again and wanted to record again, and she had just come back from the stint in the hospital. And 2 weeks later, she was gone. So it's a really sad story. I will always have great memories of her.
Well, it is a great, as far as your career is concerned, that period was a very rich time, wasn't it, to be involved with artists like the Carpenters. You can't plan for that. You can't create that. It kind of just happens, doesn't it?
Well, it does happen, but you have to keep your antennas up. I remember Sam Cooke, auditioning an artist, and he taught me a lot. This artist he wanted to sign for his own label, and I thought he was great. The guy was really good looking. He had a nice way about him. He had, striking green eyes, and Sam asked me what I thought, and I said, man, I think he's great. I think you should sign him. He says, well, turn your back on him and listen to him for 5 minutes, which I did, and I didn't receive the message. After 5 minutes with my back turned to him, I didn't get it. And he said, that's the deal, man. He says, people don't care if you're black or white or what kind of echo chamber you're using. They're just listening to a cold piece of wax, and it either makes it or it don't. So I've always used that technique at A&M. Auditioning groups, I would always close my eyes and just listen, see if I was being touched. And it seemed to work. I did that with the Carpenters when I heard that tape, and it sounded like Karen's voice was sitting right next to me on the couch, and I was curious to meet them. It wasn't the type of music that I normally listened to, but I responded to the honesty of what they were doing. It was authentic. And I made a point of, whenever a group would audition at A&M, I never wanted to discourage anyone, so at times I would just have to say, look it, man, just because I ain't getting your message, I ain't receiving your thing, it doesn't mean you ain't sending anything. Keep it going, but I don't get it.
Now, of course, before the Carpenters, before A&M, Tijuana Brass, you were at a bullfight, and that's where the inspiration came?
Yeah, that was the inspiration for wanting to do this Lonely Bull record. I never listened to mariachi music, but there was this brass band in the stands in Tijuana, and they just would introduce the different events at the bullfight, like ba-da, ba-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, vroom, the bull comes out, and then they had another fanfare for the matador and the picadors, and it was something that kind of got under my skin after, watching this for 3 years. I used to go in the springtime. And so I wanted to translate that feeling, if I could, onto a record, and that's how The Lonely Bull came about. And then I had a disc jockey friend in Los Angeles who listened to the original first recording that I did of it. That was... It was good, but he said, "Where's the hook?" I said, "What do you mean the hook? This is not a vocal. This is an instrumental." He says, "Man, you need a hook on this record." So I thought about that idea, the hook. What is the hook? So I called an engineer friend at Liberty Records, Ted Keeps, who happened to have a tape of 30,000 people screaming "Olé" at a bullfight. And so I used that right in the front as I played the fanfare, put this "Olé" sound, and bam, that was the hook. That was like the chill bump moment. And so that record became a big hit. And when I got this letter from a lady in Germany, when the record was top 10 on the charts, and she said, "Thank you for sending me on this vicarious trip to Tijuana," I chuckled, and then I thought, well, man, that record, it took her to another place. And, obviously she was in Germany, and Tijuana was pretty far away, but I thought from that point on, I'm going to try to make records that really, take you someplace. And this has been my pursuit.
Well, it has been your pursuit because you're still doing that today. You're still creating new music. You're still touring as well. How do you find the touring? Is it quite grueling?
No, I love it. Actually, I love playing. I love working with my wife. We have a very simple group behind us, drums, bass, and keyboards. We have the same guys for the last 11 and a half years, and we have a good time. They all have a good sense of humor, and they're personal friends of ours. And we have been playing to standing ovations from the start. I mean, people are loving what we're doing, and I feel somewhat of a responsibility, not an obligation, but I think we're going through some really rough times now, and if my music can make people happy and make them feel better after the concert, I think that's something I need to do, and I'm going to do it as long as I'm able to.
When you say rough times, you mean the state of the world, the state of America?
Yeah, I think there's some really negative energy out there right now, and so I like to make positive music. I mean, that's what I've always tried to do, make music that makes me feel good. I feel like if I can play something that makes me feel good, it's going to hopefully make someone else feel pretty good too.
I wonder, with the passing of years, does your attitude towards your music change in the sense that you are, I suppose, reflecting the world around you? Does your passion sort of ebb and flow according to how you feel about things?
Yeah, quite possibly. But I think what's happening now, which is kind of beautiful in one sense, because, we're dealing with zeros and ones, and that's how we're making music these days. And we're borrowing from different parts of the world because of, the YouTube and Spotify's and all those other little gadgets that we can tap into, and we're hearing music from different parts of the world, and that music is kind of like, it's morphing, there's like, music is kind of a hybrid now. You're hearing jazz coupled with hip-hop and this, that, and with a little bit of African and some Turkish, reggae. I don't know, it's a little exciting at the moment in terms of what's possible. Now, having said that, I mean, it's a little more mechanical than it used to be. We used to just go in the studio with musicians and record. Boom, that was it. You'd have the musicians there, and they'd roll some tape, and then that would be the session. You could maybe do 2 or 3 songs in a session. And now you can do that very same thing. I recorded an album called We Re-Whipped with musicians I never met. They sent me music files from different parts of the country. And these files, I put my trumpet on, send the files back to them, just the trumpet file, because it's all time-coded, and they put it into their master recording. And the point is, they could have been in Afghanistan. It didn't really matter. I just sent them the file, they mixed it, and it came out great. I mean, the whole album is terrific, but I never met these young mixers that were doing wonderful things for me.
Well, we're sitting in your studio now, and I see, obviously, there are traditional instruments around here, but you have your computers and you have your technology as well. Do you enjoy learning the technology and getting to grips with how it works? Because it can be quite challenging, can't it? Yeah,
it's fun. It's a challenge for sure, because, like I'm 82, and I like to keep my brain active. So some of the things that I have to learn, I got to really concentrate and make sure that I'm doing it the right way, or else I'll lose. You can lose it very easily. So It's challenging and fun at the same time. But I like the process of recording. There's something about it that really turns me on. It's like, how can I take songs that are sometimes familiar to people, like standard songs, and do them in a way that they haven't been done quite that way before? That's a great challenge for me, where I pick up the horn and I play Taste of Honey 14 different ways, and it came to me, I think I hit on the way to really do it, So I like that whole process. My friend Stan Getz used to say, I said, man, what's it like playing? I mean, he was one of the great, great jazz musicians. And I said, what's it like? He says, well, it's like I'm sitting in the back seat of a Ferrari. And the musicians are in front, the drummer and the bass player and the piano player. And I'm listening to them, and I'm just playing along with them. I said, come on, man, what does it really feel like when you're playing? He said something that was so beautiful. To this day, it's a chuckle. He said, well, to tell you the truth, I'm playing something slow. I feel like I'm in front of the Wailing Wall in Jerusalem, and I'm davening. He's praying through the horn.
And you said you enjoy the challenge, the process of the technology and learning new ways to do things. Do you think, as you age, that kind of mental agility is a big part of healthy and purposeful aging, that it does, in part, keep you going?
Absolutely, no doubt about it. I wish more people would wake up in the morning being excited about what they're going to be doing the rest of the day. And, I know a lot of people are stuck in some work that they need to do. They need to provide for their family. And it's a touchy situation because, we're all looking for the same thing. We're all looking for a meaningful life with purpose. And some people come from a situation and a background that's pretty sad, and it kind of drains them of their hope. So to get to a meaningful place is a lot tougher. So I'd love to see the playing field a little more even. And, I honestly feel we all have the same ticket to this thing called life, and there's no one that has a different ticket. And I think we should learn to treat each other with respect. And that's why I love young musicians and teaching kids at an early age to respond to their artistic endeavors. And I think if they do that, there's a chance that they might appreciate their own uniqueness. And if they can appreciate their own uniqueness, fingers crossed, they might be able to appreciate the uniqueness in others. And I think we need a lot more of that.
I mentioned age, but really age should be no barrier, should it?
Well, hey, there was a baseball player by the name of Satchel Paige that years and years ago said, how old would you be if you didn't know how old you was? That's about
exactly.
it. I don't feel 82. In my head, if someone, I've thought about this a lot. I feel about 53. My back feels 82 at the moment.
But you can fix that, hopefully.
Yeah, it's going to be okay. But it caught me off guard. But it's easy to say age is a number, but it depends. If you're healthy, it's a different world than if you got some serious problems. So I'm certainly aware of that.
How do you look after yourself? Do you work out? Obviously playing an instrument is a workout in itself, but do you do other forms of exercise?
Yeah, I try to stretch and, playing the horn every day, and I paint and I sculpt, and I do all those things that make me feel good. So I don't have any, strict routine, but I like to try to eat healthy. My wife is very conscious of what we put on the table and things we shouldn't eat and things we shouldn't do, and try to put a limit on the amount of sugar I take in. I don't know. I try to work healthy. You got to be lucky, though. Your genetics plays, I think, such an important part in one's health, and you hear all these stories. When I was in high school, I was working at a gym, and this guy, his name was Harvey Easton. He was a bodybuilder. He was an award-winning bodybuilder. He was a fanatic with organic, bringing his bag to the gym every day and having lunch with, seaweeds and all sorts of things that seemed like really good for him. And it was his gym. And he had a heart attack when he was 37 years old and passed away. So, I mean, I didn't want to get negative from that, but, I mean, wow, he was doing everything right, and it didn't seem to work out.
Which is a good reason just to live for today, isn't it? And we'll continue this conversation in just a moment.
Hey, quick question for you. Are you someone who wants to be fit, healthy, and happy? And what if I told you could get your dream body by simply just listening to a podcast? I'm Josh.
And I'm KG, and we're the hosts of the Fit, Healthy, and Happy podcast.
Listen, we get it. Fitness isn't easy. Carbs, no carbs.
Just stop, okay? It doesn't have to be that complicated. And that's why we made this podcast. We get straight to the facts so you can become your best you.
So the way to check us out is click the link in the show notes or search Fit, Healthy, and Happy podcast on any of the major podcast platforms. We'll see you soon.
Well, you got to live for today, but I think you got to be smart and got to be lucky. You know, I think luck plays such an enormous part of one's success, whether you're, making shoelaces or a musician or poet or painter. You got to be at the right place at the right time. And if you're prepared when the door opens for you, you got a good chance of walking through it. But if we tried to start A&M Records in today's environment, it wouldn't have happened, that's for sure. And so A&M wouldn't have happened, and we wouldn't be talking right now, probably.
Why wouldn't it have happened today?
Well, it's just a different environment. You know, it's when we started in 1962, there were little companies operating out of the trunks of their car, and we had this one record. We weren't thinking about starting a record industry. We just want to put out one record, and this record started happening, and most of our distributors that we got, they said, why don't you just take the money and run, get out of here, you got lucky. And so that kind of spurred us on. We wanted to see if we could hang on a little longer, so we did the Lonely Bull album, and that happened when we reinvested the money into the company, and little by little, there was just the two of us starting in my garage, then 3 and 5 and 20 and 40 and 90 and 100 and 300 and 500, and all of a sudden it got way out of hand, And we sold in 1990, and I never looked back. I thought it was the right time. I wasn't a complete visionary, but I did suspect something was going to go on with the zeros and ones. It was a little too easy to move music around. So we got out just at the right time, and I moved on. I'm doing what I love to do, and I'm a lucky guy.
And you mentioned your wife earlier. You've had a long, happy relationship with Lani. How big a role do you think that aspect of your life plays in keeping going and good longevity?
I think it's a huge part of what I feel. She's like an angel. She changed my life. I was not sputtering, but I was having problems. I had problems in 1969 and 70, 71. I couldn't play the trumpet. I was having all sorts of difficulties. I was going through a divorce, and I was stuttering through the horn. I couldn't get that first note out right. It wouldn't happen. And so that took a while for me to work that out. And I studied with a trumpet teacher in New York who was called the troubleshooter, and he used to teach musicians from around the world. And he looked at my trumpet. I said, "Man, do you think I should get another mouthpiece or a different trumpet?" Or he says, "Look, man, this trumpet of yours, it's just a piece of plumbing." He called it a piece of plumbing. He says, "You're the instrument. You're the instrument." And from that point on, things started to fall in place. And then I met Lani and I, our relationship really blossomed, and we got married, and I just feel really lucky to have Lani in my life. She's a world-class singer, and she's an angel.
And you've worked together, I know, a lot on your foundation, and this is a huge venture for you, and you've provided a lot of funds for a lot of young people and inspired a lot of careers, creative artistry in terms of music and other arts as well. What does that give back to you, and what enthuses you about it?
I like the feeling of giving back. I like the feeling of helping others, if I can. It started in the early 80s, And one of my goals was, look, if I can do it, you can do it too. Look, I'll show you how to do it, you know. And then I made a decision. I said, look, we're not the Ford Foundation. We're not, Rockefeller here. We have a certain amount of funds. I want to see if I can, do it in a really smart way. So we're very pigeonholed on what we do with the foundation. And it mainly goes for education and kids and the arts, trying to keep jazz alive. Jazz is the most beautiful art form, original art form, and that we have here in the United States. And I just try to do things that make sense. I kind of work from the seat of my pants. I don't have like a master plan other than we're not giving to the Red Cross or the major organizations that have a lot of funding, and I want to see if I can help kids have that same type of experience that I had when I was 8 years old, and experience their uniqueness, and whether they want to paint, sculpt, write music, become an actor, it doesn't matter as long as they can get that spontaneity out and appreciate themselves. Like I said before, then they can appreciate others, hopefully.
And looking to the future, do you have personal aspirations, musical aspirations for yourself still?
I just want to, get up to my own water level. I like the pursuit. Every day I think about, what can I work on the horn that I haven't been able to do? And I think the hardest part is to just totally be yourself and not care whether somebody listening to it thinks it's wonderful or not. It's not important. I loved Miles Davis. Miles had the attitude of, if you don't like it, take a walk. I don't care. He didn't care. He was just doing his thing the way he felt it. It's not that easy to get to, as a musician. You're playing for a lot of people and you're doing concerts. You want to do something that's going to be satisfying for everyone. And how do you get to that place and be totally, totally honest with what comes out of that horn? And that's what I try to do. I try to make it spontaneous. I try to make it authentic and real for me, and I'm pretty much doing that. So it's a satisfying feeling.
And life is good. We're here in your home in Malibu, in your studio. I can imagine why this alone would give you a lift. A beautiful part of California. There is a kind of a Zen-like feeling about this place, isn't there?
Well, there is a really Zen-like feeling because this whole property in this whole area belonged to the Chumash Indians, and where we're sitting right here, this was a sacred ground for them. And I try to preserve it in it's their place. When I bought this in 1972, I said, I'm going to do this and hope they're going to be proud of what I'm doing with their land.
Well, Herb Alpert, this has been a wonderful conversation. Thank you very much. Is there any chance of you playing us out, maybe a little medley?
Well, I got this mute on, so I don't rattle the neighbors.
Herb Alpert, it's been great. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
That's it for this special episode of Live Long and Master Aging. Our website is lamapodcast.com. That's LLAMA podcast.com. You can find show notes there. I'll include a link to the Herb Alpert Foundation, where you can find out much more about the work that Herb is doing. Many thanks for listening. Health optimization is what this podcast is all about, and that means taking care of our mitochondria, the energy centers of our cells. Physical strength, avoiding frailty is key, and that's why the science behind urolithin A and the work of Timeline Nutrition is so interesting. You can find out more and get a discount code at our website and in the show notes for this episode.